DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is everything is rented. Yes, everything is rented. You thought you owned some things? No, you own shit. Everything is rented. I'll explain what I mean when we get into this. First of all, let me remind you of a couple things. My text message number down below in the description. When we start sending it out again, I'll talk about that a lot more. Secondly, workonmygame.com. I send out emails every day. If you're not on my email list, go to workonmygame.com. If you're not getting my emails, you're probably not on the list. If you think you're on the list and you're not getting my emails, send me a message. Email me, dre@dreallday.com. We'll check. But if you're not getting my emails every single day and you know you're not on my email list, go to workonmygame.com, put your email address in right there on that page, and next email I send out, which will be tomorrow morning, you'll be getting it straight to your inbox free of charge. Next thing, workonyourgameuniversity.com. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, if you want to get access to all of our trainings and courses and programs, if you know you want to level your game up this year and you want to level your game up now and not later, and you're ready to start taking the next steps, maybe you're not even ready to take the next steps, but you know you need to move before you're ready, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Learn more about our program, see who we're working with, see the type of people we help the most, and take the next step to get to working directly with us in the university. That link is also down in the description to this episode. All those things out of the way, let's get into the topic here today, which is everything is rented. Now, what is this masterclass about? This is about helping everybody understand that most of the things that we have to continually invest in order to maintain and keep them in our lives. So that's what I mean when I say it's rented. They do not belong to you, even though you may have possession of them for the moment. And when I say the moment, I do really mean the moment. Most of the things you think that you own, you don't actually own, because if you stop paying the rent, then you will no longer have it. And you thought you didn't owe rent. Oh, you do owe rent. Everything you have, you owe rent. And let me explain to you in today's episode what exactly I mean by this. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is everything is rented. And I mean this applies in a literal sense the same way it applies in a metaphorical sense. I'm going to give you a good amount of both here in today's episode. Point number one. Anything you have to continually pay in order to keep it is not yours. Anything you must continually pay in order to keep it, I don't care what you call the payment, if you have to pay continually in order to keep it, it's not yours. You don't own it. You are simply renting it for as long as you are willing to keep paying for it. That's what it is. As long as you are willing and able to keep paying, then you have it. But as soon as you stop paying, it ain't yours anymore. I'll give you some examples. If you, for example, rent an apartment or you lease a car and you stop making the payments, well, we know what happens. It gets taken back from you. They kick you out of the place or they take your car. If you own a house, some people may say, well, I own something like a house. If you own a house, does that house come with property taxes? Yes? Okay. If you don't pay your property taxes, what happens to that house? Eventually, what will happen is the government will come and take that house from you because you owe them taxes that you have not yet paid. So they will take your house in exchange for the fact that you have not paid your taxes. All right, the government will come and take that house from you. So any of you who owns a house and you think you own a house, no, you rent the house from the government, right, because you got to pay taxes. How are you paying taxes on something that you own? Right, because it's not yours. All right, that's the point that I'm making. Anything you have in your life that you must continually do something and make some form of payment in order to keep your access to it is a form of rent. And if you really think about it, your relationships, your friendships, your business standing, your reputation, most of these things and the tangible stuff that we just talked about, all of these things you must continually make payments on in order to keep them. Your physical body, if you stop making payments on it, you stop sleeping at night, you stop eating well, you stop exercising, you stop doing whatever it is to keeping your body in a certain shape, you stop getting those Botox injections every 3 months, then all of a sudden things aren't going to look the same they were looking before. Is this true or is it not? Of course, it's true. Ladies and gentlemen, you are renting damn near everything. Many people don't like to, not many people, I'll say some people don't like to come to terms or come to grips with this realization, but it is a real thing. Okay. You will realize most of the things you have in your life are actually rented. They are not owned. There are very few things that you own. Most of the things that you own are all the things that are on your physical body. I don't mean your clothes, but on your physical body. If you were stripped down naked, those are the things you own. All right. Everything outside of that, somehow, some way, you got to pay in order to keep it, in order to have it. And I'll explain more as we keep going. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is everything is rented. Number 2, your physical body is not yours if you're in good shape. If you're in really good shape, your physical body is not yours. If you're in moderately good shape, your body is not yours. If you're in terrible shape, your body is not yours. Anybody who is in, let's just say, good shape, somebody who's in whatever you consider good, there are things that that person must do to consistently maintain your physique or figure or muscles or curves or conditioning. Any of you thinks you're in good shape? Are there things you have to do consistently in order to stay in good shape? You have muscles. Are there things you got to do to keep your muscles? If you stop doing them, would you still have muscles? No, you would lose your muscles. If you stop lifting weights, your musculature will go away. All right, your ability to lift heavy things will get smaller. You may not lose it completely, but you won't be able to lift 50 pounds as easily if you stop lifting weights because your muscles are not prepared to lift the weight because you haven't been working out. You haven't been keeping your body in a certain condition. All right, so again, can you maintain these things without doing the work? Most things you cannot maintain without doing the work. So what's some other things that come with this? Physique, your figure, your muscles, your curves or conditioning. You got to keep doing this stuff in order to maintain it. As a person who likes to run outdoors, and when I'm recording this, I've gotten myself into my proper game shape by now. I feel like it's taking longer to get into that game shape now at my older age than it did, let's say 5, 10, or 15 years ago. To get in game shape takes longer to more conditioning over a longer period of time, or the same amount of conditioning over a longer period of time to get in shape than it did in the past. The point is, with my conditioning, if I was to take a month off, I would lose the conditioning. I had to ramp back up from zero all over again, which I don't want to do. And I'm saying that to say, me being in good cardiovascular condition is because I continue to pay the rent of doing cardiovascular exercise. If I stop doing exercise and stop paying the rent, I will lose the ability. And again, same thing with any of you with your physical body. You stop paying the rent, it's over. All right, how many of you have ever known a person who used to be in good shape and now you see them and they're not in such good shape? Maybe they've gained 50 pounds. Maybe their musculature went away. Maybe they can't physically perform the way they used to perform. Why? Because they stopped paying the rent. Remember, I was in college and I had a teammate who was a really good player, very talented guy, maybe the most talented guy we had on our campus. And he, one of his issues were not on the court, his issues were off the court. This guy's just not a very disciplined individual. He did some crazy things off the court that pretty much derailed his opportunities to be great on the court. And he had the talent to be great on the court. And I remember a couple of years after graduating from college, me and one of my college teammates were up at Penn State University, and we went to go play pickup in their campus, in the Mural Gym, was a place we had played a lot when we were playing. And this guy who I'm talking about, this very talented player who I knew, we hadn't seen him in a year or two, but he was still up there at Penn State, and he was hanging out with some girl. And we got in touch with him. Hey, we're about to go play basketball. He came with us. And the thing is, he had not been practicing and keeping his game sharp. He hadn't been working on his game at all, even though he was very talented. Without the sharpness that comes with practice, i.e., he wasn't paying the rent. He had slowly lost some of his skills. Some of his skills had eroded. And I remember being on the court playing with him, and the way that he used to often dominate pickup games with his abilities back a couple of years earlier, he wasn't doing any of that day that we played. And that was the last time I ever saw him on a basketball court. And it was clear that he had lost a lot of his game. Now, at the same time, I had been in situations. I remember getting out of college in 2000, graduated college in 2004. And there was a period of a month, maybe a month and a half, when I got my first job. My first job after college was working at Foot Locker. And when I'm working at Foot Locker, I had to take public transportation to get there. And this was kind of far away from where I live. I didn't really have the space to go to a gym and work out because, first of all, I didn't have a damn car. And secondly, I needed some money. But when I finally started getting my paychecks from Foot Locker, I went and got me a car that I bought out of a classified ad in the newspaper. Those of you who are under the age of 30, you have no idea what I just said. Go ask your parents. They'll explain it to you what that is. Again, it's called a classified ad in the newspaper. They'll explain both of those terms. And I got a car, and then I went to a gym, and I had a membership for the gym that had a basketball court. It was LA Fitness. And I remember I was playing pickup in there the first day that I got there. I wasn't even planning on playing pickup. I was just going to do a workout off the court, like lifting weights, cardio, because I knew I hadn't played ball in a while. So I wanted to get back in there on a different day to kind of get myself in the right shape and all of that. And actually, I remember what happened because I had gone there earlier and I tried to use a pass, like a free pass. And the manager said, well, you can't use the basketball court under the free pass. So when I came back, I was ready to join the gym. Actually, no, I came back and I had the free pass and I was going to use it, but I only brought my non-basketball sneakers because I knew the deal was I couldn't use the basketball court. So I was figuring, all right, I won't use the basketball court. I'll just work out. So I came there with the free pass. Then they had some kind of special going on. And, gyms always have a special, right? So the special was, hey, you can join the gym now for $0 down, et cetera, et cetera. So they got me to buy a membership. So I got a membership. So now I could use the basketball court, but I didn't have my basketball sneakers. But I ended up playing in a basketball game because there were guys in there playing, and I wanted to go play. So I'm playing in this game, and I remember I was playing against this white kid who wasn't very talented. He was the kind of kid who I would have dusted him off when I was in college just a few months earlier. But again, this is after college, and it was about 6 weeks. I was 6 weeks removed from having played any basketball whatsoever. Because if you're from where I'm from, my hometown is Philadelphia, PA. Around this time of year, the weather started to break where it was colder outside, so I wasn't playing outside, and I had this job, so I wasn't in the gym as often. I just got a car and I just got some money to get a gym membership. In other words, my game was rusty, and because my game was so rusty, this kid, who again I would have made easy work of him when my game was sharp, it was a competitive game. I ended up outdoing him in the pickup game, but it was competitive. He actually had a chance because of the dullness of my blade, so to speak, because I had failed to pay rent for a certain period of time. I'm bringing all that up to help you all understand this. So one reason that I personally, fast forwarding now, have stayed in great shape, despite the fact that I stopped playing sports a decade ago, I stopped playing professional sports a decade ago, is that I continue to pay the rent of working out and finding different ways, even though I don't do it through basketball anymore. So I go to the boxing gym, I go run outside, as I told you, I work out every single day. I still pay the rent. I'm just paying a different type of rent to a different landlord, so to speak. So if I stop paying the rent, things will change, and they would change very quickly. Usually, once you get over the age of 30 to 35-ish for all humans, male and female, the rent payments are more urgently needed. Now, when you're 21, you don't have to pay rent, and you can still pretty much do well. But after about 30 to 35, for all of you, some of you are experiencing this viscerally. You look at yourself, and you know exactly what I mean. And if you're in good shape, it applies the same way if you're in bad shape. Being in good shape requires a certain continual payment. Being in bad shape, that requires a certain continual payment too. All right. And it's obvious if you've been paying the rent or not. You can feel it. If you are not sure and you want to know if you've been paying the rent or not, when it comes to your physical body, all you got to do is go to the bathroom, strip off all your clothes, and just look at yourself in the mirror. And then you can answer the question very easily. Most of you don't need to do that because you know what it looks like. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is everything is rented. Number 3. Even your mind and your way of thinking is rented. Yes, mindset is rented. Mindset is not something that's just etched in stone. If you stop challenging your mind, if you stop exercising your mind, if you stop reading, you stop thinking, you stop having stimulating conversations with people who will challenge your mind to actually give effort, i.e. thinking, you will lose that too. The human brain is a muscle and it must be exercised. The mind is a muscle and it must be exercised. The brain is not a muscle. Your brains will turn to mush if you are not giving them something to do. This is why people who are really smart, people who you call smart, they tend to have mentally challenging and stimulating conversations on a consistent basis. Why? Because they sharpen each other. Iron sharpeneth iron. This is why in combat sports, most combat sports are solo endeavors. MMA is a solo sport. Kickboxing, regular boxing, they're solo sports, but you notice that people who fight in those sports tend to train with other fighters. Why do they train with other fighters? Because training with other fighters keeps you sharp. See, it's one thing to be hitting a punching bag every day. It's another thing to hit a person who's going to hit you back. It gets you much more ready for the competition than hitting the punching bag. If you're going to be out there competing, if that's your aim, is to go out there and compete. It's the same thing when it comes to your mind. You want to be hanging around people who are going to mentally challenge you in ways that challenges you to think, rather than allowing you to just think the same way that you've always been thinking and just telling yourself that is okay because you have no challengers. Again, people who are really smart hang around other people who are smart, so they challenge each other. People who are physically strong hang around other people who are physically strong. Why? Because they challenge each other. And again, whether people are doing this in real life, whether you're doing it digitally or virtually, reading or consuming material, or some combination of all the above, all these things keep the mind sharp. You want to keep your mind sharp, you must continually challenge the mind. That means you need to be reading books, listening to conversations, listening to people who challenge you in some way. Through what they say, it challenges you to think maybe a little bit differently about the way you thought about something, or to open your mind to something that you never even considered. You do nothing and let the mind just not think at all, eventually the mental muscle atrophies. The mental muscle will atrophy. You want to see an example of this? Any of you who knows how to play, let's say, a sport like chess. I played chess when I was in middle school. Up through seventh and eighth grade, I was actually I was a pretty good chess player. I wasn't dominating at the tournaments, but I actually went into some chess tournaments. My dad taught me how to play chess, but I got to the point that I was beating him every time relatively easily. And the reason I got so good at chess is because I was part of the chess club in middle school. And our middle school chess club, we would meet, like, I don't remember how often it was. It might have been every day after school. But our teacher was this guy who was actually a really good chess player. He was like a chess champion guy, and he would train us on playing chess, and we would practice against each other every day at the chess club. And when you're playing against other people who are good every day, you have no choice but to get good yourself. I got really good because I was always playing. Now I still know how to play chess. If I play against someone who doesn't know how to play, or you just learn how to play, I will probably beat you. But if I played against someone who's playing consistently these days, they would beat me very easily. Why? Because my game is not sharp. Why? Because I stopped paying rent. I haven't played chess in a long time. I stopped paying the rent, so I'm not that good anymore. Same thing if I try to play basketball. If you never played basketball, I could beat you because I still have the skills. But if I play against someone who is actively playing basketball on a consistent basis right now, they would probably beat me. Therefore, I probably wouldn't even get into the game in the first place. But if we did play, they would beat me. Why? Because I haven't paid rent. I haven't paid rent in 10 years. All right, what do you think happens? It's the same thing with every other ability, folks. And I'm talking mindset here, but let's move on. That was point number 3. Moving on to, yes, point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is everything is rented. Number 4, everything I talk about here could lead to this concept of nihilism. What is nihilism? It is the rejection of all religious and moral principles and the belief that life is meaningless. So when I talk about the shortness of life and how we only have a certain amount of time, sometimes when I talk about that, someone may pipe up. Not everybody says it, but I think many people think it. But I had somebody say this when I was on a live stream about a week ago. He said, it makes me feel like everything that I'm doing is meaningless. All this effort and all this time I'm putting in and all this work that I'm doing is meaningless because eventually it's going to end, right? There's a shortness of life. That is one way of looking at it. I'm not telling you that you're wrong if you look at it that way. That is one way of seeing it. Everything is rented and you know that everything's going to end. What's the point of doing anything? I mean, again, what's the point? What's the point of doing anything, trying anything, putting effort into the stuff that you're doing? Is all going to be over at some point anyway, right? Why not just curl up and die? That is a legitimate question. Now, even though it's a legitimate question, I will go further and say it's based in a weak way of thinking. That's a weak line of reasoning, even though it's a legitimate question. Here's the answer. The answer is that the temporary nature of life is the exact thing that makes it valuable. Life is what it is because you don't know when yours is going to be over. Life is what it is because your job is to condense as much living as possible into the time that you have, not knowing how much time you have. That's what gives life its urgency, that you have a limited amount of time, but you don't know how limited. Life would be a lot different if we all knew exactly when our time will be up. But since none of us know, that's what makes it even more interesting because we don't know when it's over. So when we know that something will always be around, or at least we think we do, we tend to drag our feet. We waste time, we waste energy, and we don't use that opportunity to the fullest extent. You want to see an example of this? Look at your life. Every human being is guilty of this on some level. Because we know that we have a certain amount of time, and we know that we've had up to this point 20, 30, 50 years of life, our subconscious mind fools us into thinking, well, I've woken up every day for the last 50 years. I'll probably wake up every day for the next 50, or at least tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after that. Because we don't see the deadline of death, we don't see it, we don't consciously see that deadline of death for ourselves. We tend to drag our feet, move slowly, procrastinate, and don't do all the things that we could do. Not because we can't do them, simply because we have no urgency forcing us to do them. Urgency, ladies and gentlemen, is an energy, and energy is 85% of the job in life. Urgency is an energy that can be used if you know how to harness it. I'm explaining to you how to harness it, understanding that your time, you're on the clock. When I say on the clock, that means the clock is ticking down. When it gets to 0, you die. That's how it works. Your clock is ticking. When we believe something will always be around, we waste time. When we know that something will go away at some point, and we consciously are aware of it, because everybody here believes that you're going to die, right? Does anybody here think you're going to live forever? Everybody here understands you're probably going to die at some point. 99% chance. So we all, even though we understand that, we're not conscious about it. We don't see it. We don't think about that in a visceral way. Like one day I'm literally going to be done. It might be next month, might be next week, might be 2 years from now, might be 20 or 40 years from now, but one day it's all going to be over. I better go and do everything I want to do before this time runs out. When you can constantly get yourself to thinking like that, then nihilism goes away naturally. You don't have to think about it. When you know something is temporary and you know it will go away, you have the opportunity to max out on what's being made available to you. Opportunity. All of you are aware that your time and your life is going to go away. Everybody's aware of it, but you don't have the opportunity to max out on it because you aren't conscious enough about it. When you become conscious enough about it, you'll max out on it. 50 Cent, my favorite rapper of all time, tells a story in the book that he wrote with Robert Greene called The 50th Law. And really, Robert did most of the writing, but the stories came from 50. He talked about how after he got shot, he says this in many of his interviews, he said after he got shot and did not die, he had a visceral experience of how close to death he could possibly be. And that gave him a sense of urgency about life that he said he's held on to ever since that day, which was 25 years ago. He got shot. Now, I'm not telling you to go out to Southside Queens and get shot in order to get some urgency about your life, but I am telling you to get some urgency about your life, whatever you need to do to get there. Again, hopefully you don't have to get shot or get a cancer diagnosis or be in a life-threatening car accident in order to get this. But people who end up in those situations tend to have a lot of urgency about life because they have seen it up close, how close they are to death. See, most of us live in our relatively safe lives, or we don't face any emergencies or life or death situations. We don't have the luxury of having death walk right up to our faces and get nose to nose with us. But I want to let you know it is just as close to you as it is to those people. You just got to be consciously aware of it and then move yourself to the requisite actions. So it's not that we always put off things that we can do in life. It's not that we always procrastinate. Many of you are able to get your ass in gear and do what needs to be done when it really needs to be done. But we're more likely to move ourselves to action when we know something's going away than when we believe something will never go away. This is the reality of life. And all of life is rented, ladies and gentlemen, because you get a certain amount of rent. You get 70 years of rent, 40 years of rent, 30 years of rent, 85 years of rent. And when you're done making your rent payments, they call that death. It's over. Then the next wave of people moves into this space to take your place. So keeping in mind that everything's rented. Let's recap today's class. Again, this is all about helping everybody understand most of the things you have are not yours, even though you may call them yours. Number one, anything you have to continually pay to keep is not yours. You're simply renting it for as long as you're willing to continue to pay or continually able to pay. Your life is not yours because when you stop paying, then and your heart stops working, is over. Death. Point number two, your body is not yours, especially when you're in good shape. All right, anybody who's in good shape, there are things you must continually do to maintain your musculature, your physique, your conditioning, your curves, and everything like that. And if you stop doing it, guess what? It all goes away. And if you, again, want to see an example of this, go look up. Remember one of the girls you knew in, girls or guys that you knew in high school or college who was in great shape, and then go look at them 20 or 30 years later. What happened? They stopped paying rent. Right? They stopped paying rent, or they needed to start paying rent, and they were never paying rent from the beginning. And now the fact they aren't paying rent is obvious, whereas before it wasn't so obvious. Number three, even your mind and your way of thinking is rented. Because if you stop challenging your mind, then your brains will turn to mush and you will lose your sharpness. The same way I used to be really good at chess when I was 12, I'm not good anymore because I stopped paying. I stopped playing and I stopped paying. Number three, everything I talk about here could lead to nihilism, this belief that everything we do in life is meaningless because of its shortness. I would flip it around and say everything we do in life matters that much more because of the shortness of life, because you only have but so much time to live the way that you want to live. So just like 50 Cent said in his book, The 50th Law, that he wrote with Robert Greene, I better hurry up and do what I want to do because I could die again any second. You need to be thinking like that. All that said, folks, workonmygame.com. Get on my email list completely for free. Workonyourgameuniversity.com. Be one of my coaching clients. Work with me directly. Have me as your personal coach. And let's get to putting this stuff, installing this stuff systematically and strategically into your life from day one. And let's get done what you need to get done ASAP. Work on your game. University.com. Work on your game. Dre, all